Welcome to the Get to Know Memphis First United Methodist podcast. I am your host, Thomas First, and I will be interviewing people from our congregation so that through great stories, laughter, and tales of the experience of the God who is an active agent in our world, we can get to know one another. Welcome. I am excited to have you all listening to these podcasts today. I have as my special guest for the Get to Know Memphis First podcast, I have as my special guest Patricia Johnston, who she and her husband have recently joined our church for just a couple of months ago?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yes,
was it
yes.
wasn't long ago.
No.
And have been attending since the beginning of the year, I think.
Yeah, we our first service was Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. It really was like right at the turn of the year. So thank you
Hmm.
so much, Patricia, for joining me today. I think I'm really excited about this project of just helping people get to know each other.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you
Appreciate it.
bet. So I will with these different interviews, I am going to use really the same format of questions, and I'll probably riff off these as we get to talking or whatever. But I really am interested in getting to know you, and particularly like the story of your relationship with God. As I'll tell all of the guests, like you don't have to keep it, clean and holy. Obviously, there will be children listening, I assume, but I mean, don't if there have been hiccups in your relationship with God, you're welcome to say that. This is a safe place for this. So one of the questions I am really intrigued by is I always wonder when I meet people, who was the first person in your memory who you sort of remember teaching you about God in a meaningful way?
Okay, yeah. Uh, it started so early for me. I was one of those lucky kids that grew up around her grandparents, all four grandparents within 10 minutes, and my parents took me to church young. My parents were college kids when I was born, so we didn't go when I was super young that much. But by the time I was four, we were going to everything. And I remember my whole family being teaching me that. So they were probably the first. I also remember even the nursery Sunday school teacher,
Oh
who
wow.
was just sweet. We learned very simple things, the song Jesus Loves Me, all that stuff. Miss
Yeah.
Grateful Hill, and the training union guy did magic tricks for us. I just had fun. And I
Yeah.
remember enjoying being in those environments. I didn't enjoy sitting in the sanctuary, though, at all. I
Right.
remember being scared in the sanctuary. I thought the preacher, somehow I got into my mind that the preacher was God.
Oh
And that
wow.
we had a preacher, it was a Southern Baptist church in the 1960s, and he
You might
yelled a
have
lot.
thought he was God then.
Yeah. And he yelled a lot or kind of made me nervous. And so I was kind of scared of God from that. So I didn't like being in the sanctuary. Plus, I knew I'd get in trouble if I even breathed funny with my grandmother and my mother. So
Yeah.
I didn't like that part, but I remember enjoying the love I felt from some of my teachers.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting that like you have this sort of double experience of both like having these sort of nostalgia warm feelings about these teachers who taught you about God and taught you to sing about God and taught you worship. And yet at the same time, like not just like sitting in the sanctuary, which a lot of kids have to do, but also sitting in the sanctuary, like being afraid of the person who sort of announces themselves as the mouthpiece of the divine.
Yes. It was kind of scary. I figured God was probably didn't approve of me very much.
Yeah,
Felt that way for a long time actually in life, and sometimes still do that. But yeah, especially then I remember, trying to be good, but
yeah.
it didn't always work out that way. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, the sort of implication, and I mean, it may not even be an implication. A lot of times they'll explicitly say it, right? Is that God loves you for free, but then like God doesn't keep loving you without, you sort of paying the moral price in obeying.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The first time I got in trouble in church, the preacher's son got me in trouble. We were sitting together, separate from our parents somehow, and we were acting silly during the Lord's Supper, and we got
Uh,
in major trouble. And yeah. So I got straightened out about that. But anyway, it's a funny memory now to me. I don't know where he is now. I'd be curious if he remembers that.
Those darn preacher kids.
Mhm.
So do you have in your memory like an early memory and all of that of experiencing God?
Hmm. I always believed, I think, I was
Mhm.
so young. And, experiencing God, mm, how early would you think? I remember,
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
as early as you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I experienced God in ways through family, through being loved, I think,
Yeah.
more than anything else. Also, we learned a lot. And, Baptist church, we were doing the sword drills, learning a lot about the
Oh, yeah.
Bible, going to youth conferences.
Yeah.
Uh, some of that, yeah, was very positive.
Yeah.
The love I felt from the adults in that church was huge. And I think that was my biggest experience of God, although I didn't put that together that way, because there was that fear side and that guilt
Yeah.
side that was
Yeah.
always there. But yeah, I think that was really an experience of God that I didn't fully understand until much later. I still go back
Yeah.
and visit that church.
Mm.
And some of those adults are gone now, of course. But my parents and my brothers still go there. And so I still see that among a lot of the people there. And so I think
That's
that was my early
incredible.
experience of just being surrounded by people that
Yeah.
cared.
That's incredible. I think it's an underestimated. I think what you're putting your finger on something that's profound and often underestimated, which is that like the presence of God, the experience of God is most often felt as simply like the love of the community and how important that is for young children to know that their church community, and it sounds like the love and acceptance of that church community might have even maybe helped combat some of the fear you had
Mhm.
even of God through the voice of the preacher.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't blame the preacher. I think he was doing what he believed was right. And he had
Yeah,
no idea he was scaring me to death.
yeah, yeah. Or
But
maybe he did
yeah.
and he thought it was good.
Yeah, or he thought it would straighten me out. Yeah, no, that may have been more like it. But anyway, yeah, I do think that's something we do underestimate. And, I've noticed in churches since then that I've been in, my kids feel the same way. If they feel loved and accepted for who they are, it's a huge deal for them. They have positive memories of that.
Speaking as a pastor, I can tell you that people will put up with a lot of disagreement and a lot of nonsense in a church. They will put up with a lot of preachers' mistakes if they believe that the larger community loves them. Uh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, I agree.
So, with your experience of that, I mean, and it doesn't just have to be childhood or whatever, but like, is there a person in your life that you would say was like your spiritual hero or your like spiritual role model?
I thought of two. One, when I became uh, a mom in my 20s, Lenore Culbertson, who was the pastor I switched over to the Methodist
Uh-huh.
at College Grove United Methodist Church, little town outside of Nashville.
Mm,
Uh, and I lived way out in the country and was expecting a baby and had a baby who had a lot of health problems. And what was neat about her, of course, I had never been a Methodist before, and I'd never had a female pastor before.
mm,
And she was great. In fact, Martha knows her. And
uh,
so she's been around a while now. And this was in the 80s. And I remember when my son got super sick. He had a lot of health problems as a baby. He's fine now. Um, I had to rush him to Vanderbilt Hospital, and they thought something terrible was wrong with him.
mm,
Turned out not to be as bad as we thought, but it was a pretty scary experience. Um, and my husband was gone a lot, so I called her. This wasn't Brian's. Brian was not my husband then, by the way. But
mm.
anyway, I called her and just said, be thinking of us. We're at Vanderbilt Hospital. I just jumped in the car and went with no clothes, no suitcase, nothing. And
Wow.
so she, without me expecting it at all, drove an hour, came to Vanderbilt Hospital, which is kind of a pain in the middle of Nashville to get parked and all that. Came upstairs, brought me food and a toothbrush. And
Wow.
That is heroic.
Yeah.
It was dinner time. She had leftover hamburgers and brought them. And I
Mm.
always remembered that.
Wow.
Let's see. The other one uh, is Miss Jean Hatcher, who was about 88 when I met her at First Presbyterian Church in Jonesboro. And she was recently widowed and decided the rest of my life I'm going to help people who have less than me. She had a lot of
Wow.
money. She could have done anything.
Wow.
But she allowed one of my students who was from Kenya to move in with her, and this student could be a real pain sometimes. I think, a 20-year-old can
Yeah.
be a pain, not on purpose. But Jean fed her and charged her no rent because she needed a place. Ended up paying for her to get back surgery. Did a ton
Wow.
of stuff with a student from Kenya who ended up now she's in the medical field somewhere in Europe, I think.
Wow.
Miss Jean also helped me start a children's program for summer. Uh, to feed hungry kids in the neighborhood much.
Wow.
And some people opposed it, but I
Sure.
knew with her as a backer, they really couldn't oppose it very much. She was a tough retired school teacher, and you just did. And she
There's
also
some people you
encouraged.
just don't disagree with.
That's right. And so
Yeah.
she had a tough side, and she encouraged me to work in that too. And I happened to have a summer where I could do that. And she had foot problems. She needed foot surgery, all this stuff. She never missed a day except when she had her surgery. She missed about 4 days.
Wow.
And these kids came over who really, it wasn't really about the food. I don't think the food was that great most of the time, but it was about them getting in an air conditioned space, playing and having fun.
Yeah.
And several of those kids, after the summer was over, I thought I might not see them much. Several of them walked over, showed up at the church after it was over, and just started spending time with us at church. And
Wow.
kept a couple of them kept relationships with us for years. So, and I always admired her. She'd be the one that would stay after church and distribute food to hungry people. A couple of times all by herself, and I kind
Wow.
of worried about her safety. I probably should have said more, but she made it, and she handed out food, and she just did a lot. She passed away probably about 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
but her legacy will last, I promise.
I,
And she would tell everybody, "You're never too old."
I think that's like both of those stories just illustrate, I think, the things that people remember about us are often just like the being present.
Yes.
Like it's not even like the big grand gestures. It's here's some food and toothpaste because I know you had to leave home real fast and here's some folks that are hungry. Like what can we do to meet those needs? And it's not big heroic like martyrdom or something, right? And like I I, I would guess, just like neither of those women would say that they're more spiritual than other people, probably not seeing dreams and visions or hearing the spirit, talk directly to them, but like they're just faithful in those little things. That's incredible. What great role models.
They are, and I try to remember that. I'm not living up to that many times. I have these lofty ideas, and I want to say wise things, but then I realize a lot of
Yeah.
times it's not. It's about the small things.
Well, I think too, though, like, I mean, I imagine if you would have asked either one of those women, do you think yourself like a person who says wise things, or do you live up to your ideals? They would probably say no too, right? I mean, this is
Oh yeah, they
sort of the
probably
nature
would.
of humanity is like, I have my heroes and I have the role models in the faith, and like I can never be like them, and little do I know that other people look up to me the same way. So,
Oh yeah, and it is that little thing, that hamburger I never, and the toothbrush. If you
yeah.
can live with one toothbrush and some toothpaste for a pretty good while, it made a huge difference.
So is there a story, I mean, for probably I would say like, any time in your life, but is there a story from your life that sort of represents who you are, like as a person that just sort of captures the essence of Patricia?
Boy, that drove me crazy, that question, because you
Uh,
sent so many questions, and that one made me nuts a little bit. And
uh,
I kept going, man, that seems like a lot. But I will tell you, I started thinking about what essence is, and you can get very theoretical or,
sure. Yeah.
but I thought about, well, a lot of my essence is what I'm doing, I guess, shows the essence of why I do what I do. And so, and for a long time, I didn't connect this to a spiritual
Mm,
activity, right?
yeah.
I think somebody that really helped me with that was Brian, my husband.
Yeah.
We met in 2019 and got married in 2020. And I just kind of I didn't connect it, but as more I do this thing, he keeps it reminding me when I want to quit, especially that this is a ministry, even though it's not uh, what I would have thought. So
Yeah.
to back up, I'm a professor of business law at Arkansas State University, and
Okay.
I'm executive director of the Women's Business Leadership Center there.
Okay.
Um, and so to me, that has been a great passion because for 20 years I was an attorney in Franklin,
Okay.
Tennessee, near Nashville. And then I got really lucky and got away from that to become a professor.
Okay.
And I say that not because being an attorney is bad, but for me it wasn't the best fit sometimes.
Hmm.
I couldn't really be myself
Yeah.
as the way I wasn't quite comfortable ever. And I got really burned out because I was getting up at 3 a.m. and working until 6 p.m. and doing, you have to do that sometimes for your clients.
Yeah.
So anyway, I switched gears, became a professor. But what had motivated me about the Women's Center that was a long time in the making was I remember third grade, I said, I want to be the first woman president. Everybody else
Nah.
wanted to be a nurse or a fireman or a professional baseball player or whatever.
Yeah.
I was going to be that. Well, I guess there's still time, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so, but I remember saying that in school. Well, by eighth grade, I wasn't saying anything like that.
Mm,
Schools can, and I've looked at statistics, especially about girls, and they lose
yeah.
their confidence during those years between about third and eighth grade, and it
Yep.
doesn't really come back for most of us for a long time. It's not all girls, but it's a lot of girls. And I'll say one thing about our church that I'm loving at First Methodist is I'm watching some of the girls who are in high school.
Mm,
They've got confidence.
mm,
And I'm seeing that in our Sunday school class. I'm seeing that in your girls. I'm seeing it in a lot of places there, and it makes me so happy.
yeah.
But I remember I didn't understand that I was losing my confidence, but I was. And part of it was
Yeah.
some things teachers said. Part of it was it wasn't my parents' fault. I will give you for sure.
Sure.
My family was supportive. So
But
anyway,
just the general kind of culture that we're a part of.
it's the culture, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to college, going to law school anyway, in spite of low confidence. My last year of law school, I had a very crusty, tough female professor who had gone to law school like in the 1950s, I think. So she had to be really tough. And so I was the only woman in her class, in a tax seminar class, and the only non-CPA. I do not know why I took that class. That was crazy. But I like challenges. I wanted to meet her. So I
Mm.
thought, I'll do it. And I'm the only woman in the room. And on day one, she decided to single me out every class and basically treat me like a moron in front of everyone every
Whoa.
time. Now, I was already used to being treated that way. Like first year of law school can be that way, right? The
Sure.
Socratic method, they humiliate you over and over, everybody. But in that class, I was the only one she did it to
Hmm.
for week after week. I dreaded going. Oh gosh, it was horrible. And I had to finish it because it was my senior writing project class too. And we had to do a big project. So I went to see her with my paper, my first draft, and she said, "You're not going to graduate." And I'm like, "Oh no." I already had job lined up.
Oh
I
my
had a lot of student
gosh.
loans. She said, your paper's horrible. You're never going to make it. I don't know why you even came to law school. I was like freaking out.
Yeah.
So, of course, what she did is she motivated me to go fix it and work really hard. So that's what I did. Well, at the end of the semester, she actually had a party at her house for the law students. We went there and she took me aside and she said, I guess you noticed I was meaner to you than
Huh.
everybody else. I'm like, yes, I did. And she said, well, I did that because you're a woman. And I went, okay. That
Oh
didn't make me feel
wow.
much better. And she said, I just wanted you to know that if you're a woman in the legal field, you're going to have to work 10 times harder than the men to get the
Wow.
same respect.
Yeah.
I never forgot it. It kind of messed me up a little because then I really tried to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of a recovering workaholic.
Sure.
But On the other hand, it stuck with me. It's a memory for sure. And then after that, I had a lot of weird experiences. I had one judge. I went into court one day. It was one of my first times in court. I was probably 24, 25 years old. I go into the courthouse. This male judge who had briefly met me but forgot. And I was on the plaintiff's side, and he, was ready for time for me to say something. He said, "Who's here for the plaintiff?" And I stood up, and he started screaming. He was like, "I didn't want a secretary is not legally permitted to represent people in court. Where's the attorney?"
What?
So the guy on the other side was a young guy too. He had gone to law school with me. We didn't know each other well, but he knew I had a law degree. And he tried to say something. The judge yelled at him and said, "I don't want anybody to say a word. This is disrespectful having a secretary try to talk in court. You
Oh my
guys get out there
gosh.
and either settle this or reschedule it." And I mean, we're both are mount. He said, and I tried to say something again, and he said, "If you say one more thing, I'm going to have you arrested for contempt of court." I mean, we're just like, okay. So we just left. Well, shortly thereafter, the judge figured out his error. He never really apologized.
Oh,
I was in that town another 19 years, I'd say, and he was always a little nicer to me after that
uh-huh.
than
Yeah.
everybody else.
Oh
It was,
my
I
gosh.
saw case after case of that where I would go to court or I had one guy even after I, way late in my career, he didn't realize what he was saying. He's like, "Well, we've been trying to get a divorce attorney for my daughter, and I guess we're going to have to use a woman because the men won't return our calls." But it still goes on, right? These perceptions. So anyway, that was a crazy thing. Well, I got mad sometimes, but I just
Sure.
kept working and working and working. I fast forward to now, and I look at the young women that I meet, but I also look at all my, I mean, I really enjoy relationships with a lot of different students, not just women, but this women's center has kind of given me more opportunity. So I think about all those stories and what she said, and I just don't like unfairness. I don't like injustice, which may be why I became an attorney. So I think back to what helped me the most, and I think about mentoring as a very important piece of this. And so that's what
Yeah.
we do in our center. And I'm not a gifted mentor, to be honest, but I like putting people together with people, students together with people who are.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what I'm doing. Sometimes relationships do develop that are good mentoring relationships with me, but a lot of times I'm just finding other people who are great and put them together, which is a big piece of what I do. But I remember as
I
a
think
young,
this is deeply spiritual.
well, that's what I didn't really get. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know why I had that separated in my head, but I'm realizing now our work can be spiritual. I guess I
Yeah.
just didn't put it together that well. So, but I look back at people, and I met a woman named Kitty when I was a young attorney who was in a firm with me. I started out in a big firm. Really didn't fit there, so I ended up in my own small firm with a partner. But Kitty took me around, took me to meet clients, took me to lunch a lot. I didn't appreciate it enough at the time. When I passed the bar exam, Kitty was the first one at my apartment with a bottle of champagne, to congratulate me. Those little things do matter because I was really sinking, in this big law firm. She brought the champagne. I was on an antibiotic or something. I said, "I can't drink any." So she just opened the bottle, drank the whole bottle herself while she sat with me and celebrated. And so, those types of celebrations do matter. And I've realized now, especially the students I see now, need that more than ever because I didn't, at least I wasn't as isolated. COVID isolated people, social media can isolate us, all that stuff. And so we have managed to put together a huge network of women and men who want to mentor our students. It's been mostly female based, but we're trying now to expand the model to include anybody who wants it because we don't want to exclude anybody based on
Right.
gender.
That's
Um,
incredible.
and so our donors have been mostly women, with the exception of one male student I had that donated. But we're trying to make it grow, make it last.
Yeah.
A lot of students tell me now that they have really, some of them were so lonely. And I can remember being lonely in college. I made friends,
Yeah.
but I can remember that loneliness. They now feel that they have a place to go to be supported. I've had students once, some students who wouldn't say a word.
Yeah.
brilliant students, but they're perfectionists, or they're just shy. And now they're making speeches at some of our events, and as adults, they're coming back and giving
Yeah.
back and becoming mentors.
We
So we're
see this.
trying to build some
Yeah.
courage for women.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, especially like, I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but there are just so many, there's so much information, not just about like how girls lose confidence, particularly around the time they hit that sort of puberty age, but then even when they get into these professional fields, like there are these and not just women, but like black folks, minorities, queer people, like they have to
Yes,
work twice as hard in order to prove they belong. And it's assumed, like you were saying, like with the judge, like it's assumed that they don't belong.
it's
Uh,
assumed. Yeah.
and so, yeah, so there's something deeply, deeply spiritual about forming generations of female leadership and connecting them with each other. What, in light of all of this, like when you think about how God does relate to your work, when you think about God, how like God relates to your memories and your mentoring and like what kinds of images come to mind when you think about God?
Now, that's evolved over the years, of course.
Hmm.
And there's a song, gosh, I can't think of who sings it. Sarah, I think it's Kroger is her name. Anyway, it's belovedness. But I've started trying to remember that my identity is about being loved and be
Mm,
loved by God. And so one of the short lines in there is God's talking to you, and He says, I smiled when I made you.
mm,
And so I try to think about God seeking me out, smiling when He made me, because for a long time I didn't really like what He made when He made me. You know what I mean? I didn't
yeah.
think He made a good product. I
Yeah.
should say when it was me. But I've realized He smiled when He made me. So I kind
Mm,
of see His eyes smiling, I think, and watching as one image. That's one of many. Of course, there is also light and water and food and
yeah.
beauty. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's one that I think of often because, and I've had to work a long time to get there, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't see it
Yeah.
that way. I didn't
It's
feel the love.
interesting
I felt,
how,
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting like how many of us growing up in church or whatever sort of come to this assumption, and I've had to work through it too, this assumption that the product that God made when God made me, that God made some sort of like deficient product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the years and experiences it takes to change that.
It does. And I think, therapy helps to
Yeah.
change that. I was married 33 years before, and then I was divorced. And so I went through therapy at that time,
Mm.
for the first time ever. But that really helped me realize, God made me, and he didn't mess that up.
Yeah.
I've believed it all that time, but it's
Yeah.
not a good
Yeah.
belief to have. God, kind of an insult to God for me to
Yeah.
tell him he messed that
Right.
up.
Yeah, that's such good theology. And then speaking of that, like, I mean, I think it also helps, like, I mean, at some point it sounds like you switched to attending a different church than what you grew up in. Having a church that affirms that God loves you rather than is angry with you all the time is really helpful. And then speaking of church, what was it about Memphis first that sort of attracted you and meets your needs or sort of just made you say this is where I belong?
Well, there's a lot. We are so excited to be at Memphis First. We like your ministry a lot. We love the fact that unhoused people and people from all walks of life are there
Yeah.
together, all as God's children, taking communion together every Sunday. We love
Mm.
that. It's important to us. We have met warm, friendly people. Also, it engages our brains, and
Yeah.
it's not it is about emotion sometimes, but it's also, I'm a super curious person. I love to learn, and Brian's the same way. And it has engaged our brains and our hearts. And I think sometimes, well, you've talked about it in Sunday school a little bit. churches lean one way or the other. But we see it all, the big combination there of exactly what fits us. And we feel like maybe there's a way different ways we can serve there. And we hope we can find more ways. I love the Bible study you did, the Friendship at the Margins. It's a
Yeah,
book I
yeah,
never would have found. It was kind of hard to get, it was kind of out of print or whatever, but
yeah.
just thinking more clearly about what we are supposed to be doing to share the love that God has for us.
I
It's really
love
good.
it. Yeah. And we'll continue to do Sunday school and do those book studies or sacred conversations, every semester. But Patricia, I am so grateful that I learned some things about you that I didn't know. So
Yeah,
I
we have
am,
never really talked much because we're always busy. You're pretty
yeah,
busy on Sunday
yeah.
morning. So,
Well, I
yeah.
am glad that you were not too busy to sit down with me and just like field some questions. It was fantastic getting to know you. And I'm looking forward to the rest of our congregation also just sort of hearing your wisdom and hearing your story.
Well,
So
we're so
thank you.
grateful for you. We are
Yeah.
very grateful for your time. I know you do a lot, and we are so glad to know you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night.